Can you learn to speak a language fluently in 3 months? Of course you can, and I'm going to explain you why you can and how exactly you can. But first of all, let's debunk some misconceptions, some myths and some misconceptions about what fluency really is. Because I got a lot of angry comments, like this guy here who says, you can achieve basic level in 3 months, but advanced language and actually use it like native do here, we are talking about several years. Thing is, a lot of people confuse. By the way, I read it like that because that's the way it was written. There wasn't a single comma there. It's just one long sentence. In fact, lots of mistakes there. Guys, if English is not your native language, just spell check and make sure that what you type in is correct. Because this one in particular is not hard to read, but it's just, even if you had a good point, which you don't in this case, if your writing's terrible, it's very difficult to take you seriously. But anyway, the problem here is that this viewer thinks that fluency means speaking like a native speaker, which it doesn't. Fluency means being able to express yourself without hesitation, smoothly. You form sentences. You don't have to search for words that you don't know. You don't have to. Uh, I'm from this. That's not fluent. What I'm doing, my English is fluent. I don't sound like a native speaker. I do have an accent. I will probably never get rid of my accent, even if I try. But that's fluent. Fluency is being able to express yourself smoothly without struggling to find words. As you can see, I can speak for hours about any topic in English and other languages. That's fluency. Fluency is not speaking like a native speaker, right? And speaking relatively smoothly and without hesitation and without running out of words, without having to search for words and stop in mid sentence to think, and without all those problems. Speaking like that is very achievable very fast if you do it right, if you do all the right things. Yeah. So what I recommend you do is, instead of doing the usual thing of either wasting your time with apps like Duolingo, things like that, where you spend, well, uh, you use the app for years and you still can't say anything, or because you just practicing something that's got nothing to do with the real conversation, or learning with input, which is learning by input it's more interesting and definitely better than using apps like Duolingo, but you're still not working on your speaking and it's also very slow. What I recommend you do is to think of what the desired end result is, what your goal is. In this case, being fluent, speaking fluently, expressing yourself, and also understanding. But to think of what the goal is and then to think of how you can get there as fast as possible. And if your goal is to, this is the conclusion I got to. If your goal is to speak fluently, you need to work on your speaking. You need to learn lots and lots and lots of words that you will use. This will also come in handy for comprehension. And you need to work on your speaking practice. You need to say things aloud all the time. So you basically do lots and lots of listening and repeating drills with thousands of sentences. You use language islands, which again, you do the same kind of exercises, but with your own sentences that you have prepared for specific scenarios. And you do retrieval practice, which means you try to retrieve the information. You translate from English or your native language, whatever the language is, into the language you're trying to learn. You try to translate verbally aloud, and then get the you get the answer, and you try again and again until you get it right. But everything is speaking oriented. Yeah. So memorize vocab, and then lots of listening and repeating. I'm talking tens of thousands of reps. Language islands also for both retrieval practice and listening and repeating. But yeah, listening and repeating and retrieval practice with language islands and with other random sentences to learn the entirety of the language. But everything should be active. There should be a lot of output if your goal is to become fluent, and you should be doing many, many thousands of reps of listening and repeating and retrieval practice. Yeah, if you do that, and most people will avoid it because it's hard work. It's hard work. But if you actually do it, you can become fluent very fast. It doesn't mean that you know the culture very well. It doesn't mean that you have a deep knowledge of the country and the language, and maybe you can speak fast and you can speak smoothly and fluently. But there are a lot of things about the culture and the country and the native speaking people that you don't know because you haven't had the input yet. But what I recommend is doing this first, front load this stuff, the output heavy, really intensive, deliberate practice to become conversational and then fluent as fast as possible, and then add more and more interesting input with native speaker content that you actually find interesting. Instead of wasting thousands of hours watching nonsense content for beginners, children's content, short stories, this kind of stuff over and over until you finally understand very well, and then eventually you understand everything, and then eventually you speak. That's extremely slow. If you learn like that, obviously you will not be fluent in 3 months or even in 3 years. Yeah. So if you want fluency, focus on the things that work on your speaking. Yeah, work on your speaking. It's hard work, but it's worth it, right? And do the input later to learn the culture, learn about the country, and to keep practicing and improving your language because you never really 100% learn a language, even your native language, right? And obviously, someone who is fluent but doesn't really do any input will not be as good as the language as someone who did the fluency part and then the active part, and then also later got hundreds or even thousands of hours of input with native speaker content. Yeah, if you listen to podcasts, if you read books in the language, and all that, obviously at some point you'll become an expert in the culture, the country, and the language. You can't get there just with the speaking exercises alone, but you need to do them. Otherwise, you'll become an expert, a pseudo expert in a country who can't. Okay, you've read 30 books about Russia in Russian. You know a lot about Russia, obviously, but maybe you can't have a 5 minute conversation without hesitation. You don't want to be that guy either, yeah? You want to be able to have long conversations, meaningful conversations without any hesitation, while at the same time knowing a lot about the country. But if I had to choose, I'd go for conversation and fluency first, and then all the input later to keep learning about the language. Also, the input is going to be easier if you have learned to speak first because it'll be much more enjoyable. All right. Anyway, fluency in 3 months definitely possible if you do the work, hard work. Right.